My name is Chloe Anderson, and I'm 52 years old. We were sitting in an upscale restaurant in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, a place my family had booked 3 months in advance to celebrate my only daughter, Natalie's college graduation. The private dining room was filled with lavender flowers and scented candles, the tables draped in crisp white linens, and the guests laughing, toasting, enjoying the evening. It was supposed to be a night filled with pride and joy. Then my husband, Marcus, stood up with a glass of champagne in hand, eyes scanning the room like he was the star of the evening. I thought he was about to give a heartfelt toast to Natalie. Instead, in a calm voice that sounded more like a corporate memo, he said, "I've decided to start a new life, without Chloe." The room froze. The clinking of silverware stopped mid-matcher. Nearly 40 guests, friends, family, longtime colleagues, turned to look at me. Some exhaled sharply, as if they had seen this coming. Others covered their mouths in disbelief. I sat still, back straight, hands resting lightly on my napkin. Natalie, still wearing her navy blue cap, sat right beside me, her lips pressed into a tight line, eyes wide with panic. I felt like I was trapped in the eye of a storm, but not a single tear fell. "Thank you for your honesty," I said, my voice calmer than I expected. "I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." I reached into my purse, pulled out a perfectly smooth cream envelope, and placed it gently beside Marcus's champagne glass. He frowned, visibly confused. "What's this?" he asked, his tone starting to shift. "Just something for you to read after dinner," I replied without looking at him. I turned to Natalie, leaned in, and kissed her forehead. "I'm so proud of you. This is your day. Don't let anyone steal that light from you." Then I stood. No screeching chair, no unnecessary movement. I turned to the stunned crowd. "Please, everyone, enjoy the rest of your meal. I wish you all a lovely evening." I walked out of the dining room, my heels clicking steadily on the marble floor. The glass door shut behind me with the finality of a punctuation mark. Outside, the late spring heat hit my face like a wave, but strangely, it felt freeing. My chest felt lighter. I had been waiting for this moment for months. The back door burst open and slammed shut. I heard rushed footsteps, followed by Marcus's voice, no longer composed, but frantic and furious. "Chloe, what the hell are you trying to pull? What did you just do?" I didn't stop walking. My car was parked not far away, under the shade of a large oak tree. I hit the lock button, a sound that felt like the beginning of my freedom. I didn't turn around. I simply let a faint smile rise to my lips. Inside that envelope was the beginning of something Marcus never saw coming, and couldn't escape. He picked the stage. I just changed the lead. I drove slowly away from the restaurant, feeling as empty as the quiet, endless street ahead. It wasn't because Marcus had left me. It was because I knew this wasn't the end of our marriage. It was the final act of a decades-long performance I had played in without applause. A play where I was always behind the scenes, and he was the star in the spotlight. It had all started 8 months ago. I was reviewing our bank statements as I always did. I'd been the one managing our finances for years. That day, a $1,400.00 withdrawal from our secondary joint account caught my eye. It had been transferred to something called Dawson and Lynn Holdings. The name sounded like a company, but we'd never invested in anything by that name. I said nothing. I waited. Over the next few weeks, more withdrawals popped up. $600.00, then $2,000.00, then $850.00, sometimes 3 times a week. I quietly started tracking everything in a hidden spreadsheet on my laptop, disguised under the name of a recipe file Marcus wouldn't think to open. The trail kept growing, like a spider web tightening around me. One night, Marcus left his phone in the car. It took me exactly 3 minutes to unlock it using facial recognition while he snored off his company dinner. In the messages, I found the truth I had long suspected but hoped wasn't real. A string of conversations with a woman named Tessa. Tessa, 34 years old, a realtor, blonde waves, a toned figure, exactly the type Marcus always lingered on in old magazines. The messages weren't just flirty. They were full-blown plans. The condo in Wilmington is almost ready. You just need to send the rest. Chloe won't know until it's too late. Still, I said nothing. I wasn't the type to scream, throw things, or cry on the kitchen floor. I'm Chloe Anderson, former CFO of 3 major corporations, the same woman who bailed Marcus out when he quit his banking job to chase his dream of opening a wine boutique, a dream that fizzled out after just 11 months. I began gathering evidence, bank records, screenshots of texts, hotel receipts, and most importantly, I found the prenuptial agreement I had once thought meaningless. I dug through our home safe. Beneath a stack of birth certificates and outdated insurance policies was the 4-page contract Marcus made me sign before we got married, a draft written by his family's attorney. Back then, I had more assets than Marcus, and he said it was just to protect us both. I signed it with a smile because I trusted him. But what Marcus forgot was that I had requested one amendment. If clear evidence of infidelity is found, the non-offending spouse reserves the right to claim the majority of marital assets and primary residency of the shared property. I asked my old friend and personal attorney, Valerie, to review it. She took 10 minutes to confirm. The clause was still fully enforceable. It's valid for the entire length of the marriage. If you have proof, Chloe, you're holding gold. So I started planning. Quietly, not a flicker of emotion. I slowly moved my personal belongings into a small apartment rented under the name of my old consultancy, Anderson and Moore Strategies. I hired someone to change the locks on my home office. I opened a new personal account at a separate bank and began transferring savings under my name and Natalie's from our retirement funds. I scheduled a meeting with a family court attorney and quietly filed for divorce. All documents were signed, sealed, and submitted the morning of Natalie's graduation while Marcus was still adjusting his tie in front of the mirror. That evening, when he stood up and declared he was leaving me like a king granting mercy, I sighed because I knew the envelope I had handed him wasn't the end of our marriage. It was the beginning of a fall he'd never recover from. Marcus showed up at my front door at exactly 10 a.m. the next morning. I'd already expected that time. He was always someone who kept time the way he kept a mask, punctual, proper, and perfectly in character. But today, his face was pale, his hair a mess, his shirt wrinkled, no trace of the man who had set himself free less than 12 hours earlier. I waited for him in the living room. The locks had been changed the night before. I only opened the door after the 4th ring, just long enough for him to feel what it's like to wait outside a place that no longer belongs to him. "Chloe, we need to talk," he said quickly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I didn't move. "You have 30 minutes. I have a video call afterward." He tossed the envelope I'd left on the table, his eyes burning. "What is this? Divorce? Account freezes? When did you file?" "Yesterday morning, at 9:15, I replied flatly. "You planned this in advance?" His voice cracked into a sharp pitch. "You've been spying on me? Violating my privacy?" I tilted my head. "Yes. I tracked the disappearing funds from our joint account, the hotel bills, the photos you sent to Tessa, and of course the messages about your shared condo with her that you thought I didn't know about." Marcus's face hardened. "That condo. I contacted the real estate company 2 weeks ago. The lease application was denied due to poor credit. The leasing agent called our home line to confirm information, and I was the one who picked up." I walked over to the table, opened my laptop. "I have a recording of that call as well." "Jesus," he muttered, then shifted tones. "Chloe, you can't do this. I know I messed up. I was wrong. But you're taking this way too far." "No, Marcus, you took it too far. I'm just holding you accountable." He collapsed into a chair, rubbing his head. "I've lost everything. You've frozen all the accounts. I can't even withdraw money. That was money I saved to invest." I gave a soft laugh. "You mean the money you saved by draining our retirement fund, Natalie's college account, and selling off stock I held under power of attorney? Did you really think I wouldn't notice?" He looked up. attempting sympathy. You're ruining both our finances. No, I'm protecting mine and our daughters. He shot up. I can't believe you're this calculated. I stared him straight in the eye. It's laughable that the man who cheated is now blaming the woman he betrayed for being calculated. You shifted money, planned your exit, and publicly humiliated me in front of family and friends. Now you're upset that I followed the legal process? There was a brief silence. Then Marcus pulled out his phone and started dialing. I'm calling my lawyer. I'm not letting you drag me through the mud. Go ahead, I said calmly. But you should know, I filed a copy of the prenuptial agreement, including the clause on marital fidelity. Any halfway decent attorney will tell you. I hold the advantage. That clause expired, he shouted. No, Marcus. Clause 14 is clear. This provision remains effective for the full duration of the legal marriage and shall apply in any division of assets resulting from a violation of fidelity. I enlarged the document on my screen. I didn't add it later. You are the one who insisted I sign it. He stared at the text as if seeing it for the first time. I wasn't done. I handed him a folder, a full list of frozen assets, the rejected apartment lease, and an additional civil complaint for financial misconduct if he attempted to access our retirement accounts again. Marcus sank deeper into the chair. My God, Chloe, how did you arrange all of this in just a few weeks? I raised my eyes. I spent 8 months preparing. You? You didn't even take 8 minutes to ruin everything. He lowered his head, phone still in hand, but he hadn't dialed. I'll stay at my mother's. You can't kick me out of my own house. I'm not kicking you out. I'm following procedure. You have 2 days to pack. After that, the locks will be changed per the court's temporary order. It was approved this morning. I stood. It's over, Marcus. You wanted a new life? Here's your chance. And for the first time, I saw Marcus with no performance left to give. Not a husband, not a victor, just a man who made the wrong move and couldn't find his way back. Natalie showed up at my house that afternoon, still wearing her navy blue graduation dress, though she had taken off the cap and gown. Her mascara was smudged and she clutched a messy tote bag like she had left the party the moment I did. I heard the screech of tires just before the doorbell rang, fast and insistent. I opened the door. She didn't say a word, just threw her arms around me and held on tight, almost breathless. When did she find out? Natalie's voice cracked. I held her shoulders gently, guiding her inside. It's been a while. I didn't want to ruin your final semester. She gave a bitter laugh. So Dad saved it for today, just to ruin it for you instead? I didn't answer. Natalie walked into the living room, dropped her bag, and sank into the couch. Her eyes still looked stunned. Why didn't you tell me, Mom? I had a right to know. I sat across from her, voice soft. You did. But you also had the right to enjoy an important day without being dragged into your father's mess. I just wanted you to have a little peace. She looked up. Is it true? He really has someone else? I nodded. Tessa, 34. I have the evidence. It's already with the court. She was quiet for a few seconds, then let out a dry chuckle. Tessa! That name sounds cheaper than the excuse he gave. I couldn't help but laugh, just for a moment. Me called me, Natalie said, eyes still on the floor. Said you were trying to tear the family apart, that you were manipulating the court to take everything. I said nothing. Then he cried. I could hear him pouring a drink in the background. She looked up, eyes red. But I know you, Mom. You don't act out of spite. You've never done anything without thinking it through. I reached across and took her hand. I'm only doing what I must, to protect what's mine, and to protect you. The back door creaked open, followed by a familiar voice. I brought peach cobbler. Not sure anyone's hungry, but sugar helps when life tastes bitter. It was Eleanor, Marcus's younger sister, 49, a high school English teacher, single and never shy about saying exactly what she thinks. I used to call her the last heart still beating in Marcus's family. Natalie stood up. Aunt Eleanor? Hey, sweetheart, I just kicked your dad out of my driveway. He tried to stroll in like nothing happened. I invited Eleanor in. She set the cobbler down and gave me a serious look. Chloe, I've known about this since last Christmas. I saw Marcus with Tessa at the Asheville Mall. Thought maybe I was mistaken, but the way he touched her, it wasn't just casual. I nodded slightly. I'm guessing you kept quiet. I confronted him. He swore it was over, said it was a moment of weakness. I gave him a chance to come clean. Eleanor sat down with a sigh. I hoped he still had an ounce of decency. Natalie looked at her. Why didn't you tell Mom? I was afraid. Afraid if I was wrong, Chloe would be dragged into a storm before she was ready. I know she's strong, but betrayal cuts deep. Eleanor shook her head. I was wrong. I should have warned you. I placed a hand on Eleanor's shoulder. You did what you thought was right. I don't blame you. Eleanor looked at me with quiet admiration. I've never seen anyone handle a divorce the way you have. Calm, calculated, not a single tear in front of a crowd. Marcus still doesn't realize he just lost the most valuable thing in his life. Natalie pulled out her phone. I deleted Dad's number. Don't do that, I said gently. He's still your father. You can be angry, but don't let him define who you are. And what does he get to be defined as? Natalie asked. I exhaled, my eyes drifting to the back window where the late afternoon sun was painting the yard in soft orange light. A lesson you never want to repeat. The doorbell rang for the second time, cutting through the heavy silence that had settled over Eleanor's small kitchen. Natalie stood up to answer it, but I gently placed my hand on her arm. I'll get it, I said. I know who it is. I walked into the hallway and opened the door. As expected, Marcus stood there in a faded blue polo shirt and old jeans, nothing like the composed man he once presented to the world. Next to him was Tessa, her hair tied up hastily, her face pale, visibly uncomfortable being here. Chloe, Marcus began, voice tense with control. I know I messed up, but you're pushing this too far. We need to talk, all four of us. I stepped aside. Not an invitation, but not blocking them either. Come in. But if this turns into finger-pointing, I won't stay quiet. They walked into the living room. Natalie and Eleanor were seated, both looking up as they entered. Natalie crossed her arms, eyes icy as they locked onto her father. Sweetheart. Marcus started, but Natalie was already on her feet. You got here just in time. I've got something to say too. Marcus blinked. This doesn't concern you. Doesn't concern me, Natalie laughed bitterly. You ruined my graduation night to announce you were leaving, Mom. You lied to me for a whole year. I worked part-time to help pay for my textbooks because you said we needed to tighten the budget. Meanwhile, you were buying diamond necklaces for her? Tessa tugged at Marcus's sleeve, uneasy. Craig, I thought. You said that was from your private investment account. Marcus turned to her, eyes flashing with panic. I used some of my own funds. The rest was... You took it from the joint account? Tessa cut in, voice sharp. The one with both your names on it? I sat down, arms crossed. You might want to read the court filing. I listed every unauthorized transaction Marcus made. From our retirement account and our daughter's education fund. Tessa turned fully to Marcus, her face now white. You told me this wouldn't happen. I didn't think Chloe would catch on so soon, he stammered. Didn't think? Natalie snapped. She's managed finances for 3 corporations. You thought she wouldn't notice missing transfers and withdrawal logs? Tessa looked at Marcus, then at me, and then without warning she stood up abruptly. I didn't come here to be part of a circus, she said. I thought I was building a future. Now I see I was just an accessory in a plan that never existed. Wait, Marcus reached out. Tessa, don't do this. It's a misunderstanding. No, Greg, she yanked her arm free. It's the truth, and I hate it. I stood, walking slowly up to Marcus. You can leave with her, or stay and hear the rest of what I've prepared. Either way, the outcome won't change. Marcus clenched his jaw, struggling to contain his frustration. Chloe, this is cruel. 28 years of marriage, and you're just throwing it away? I'm not throwing anything away, I replied. You let go first. I'm just making sure I don't fall with you. Natalie stepped forward, standing protectively between us. Mom's not being cruel. She's just done letting people walk all over her. Marcus looked at his daughter, then glanced around the room like he was hoping for someone, anyone, to defend him. But no one spoke. Eleanor remained still, her expression as hard as stone. Finally, Marcus turned to Tessa, who was already heading toward the door. We'll talk later, he said quietly. No need, she replied without looking back. There's nothing left to talk about. The door clicked shut behind her like the period at the end of a sentence. Marcus sighed, lowered his head, and said softly, Chloe, please don't take this any further. I met his eyes, voice firm and final. It's already gone exactly where it needed to go. The preliminary hearing took place on a cloudy Tuesday morning. Wake County Courthouse wasn't crowded, but the air was thick with tension. I entered the courtroom with my attorney, Mrs. Madeline Grayson, a woman in her early 60s, silver-haired, petite, with eyes sharp enough to slice through any excuse. Marcus arrived with a new lawyer, younger and clearly unprepared. He avoided eye contact with me from the moment we stepped in. The presiding judge, Judith Parnell, was around 70, her voice low and firm enough that no one dared interrupt. After confirming our identities and the purpose of the hearing, she got straight to it. The case file shows that the petitioner has filed for divorce, supported by financial and personal evidence of a breach of the fidelity clause clearly outlined in the prenuptial agreement. Does the respondent contest the validity of this document? Marcus's lawyer cleared his throat, flipping through papers. Your Honor, we argue that the prenuptial agreement has lapsed due to the near 3-decade duration of the marriage. Madeline didn't even glance at him. She calmly turned to page 12 of the agreement and pointed to the bolded text. As Clause 9, Section C. This agreement remains in effect throughout the entirety of the legal marriage and shall apply in any instance of moral breach, regardless of timing. Judge Parnell nodded. I've reviewed that section. The contract is fully enforceable. Marcus lowered his head, fingers laced together. I knew then he realized everything was slipping away. Madeline continued. The petitioner has submitted documentation showing the respondent transferred funds from joint accounts in violation of marital financial obligations. The transactions include $11,400.00 from the linked retirement fund, $5,300.00 from the daughter's education account, and numerous smaller withdrawals confirmed as undisclosed personal expenditures. The judge turned to Marcus, tone steady. Mr. Caldwell, did Mrs. Anderson consent to these transfers? Marcus muttered, barely audible, No. I hereby order the continued freeze of all joint accounts except Mr. Caldwell's personal account. This will remain under court supervision and may only be used for essential living expenses during the interim. I didn't react, just pressed my hands firmly against my knees. For the first time in our marriage, Marcus was being forced to live with limits. Judge Parnell went on. The property at 1119 Wexford Drive, currently occupied by Mrs. Anderson, will remain under her primary use until a final ruling is made. The evidence shows that Mr. Caldwell intended to vacate this residence and engaged in questionable financial conduct. Given the violation of the fidelity clause, I see no basis for him to retain residential rights. Marcus's young lawyer weakly objected, but the judge shut him down immediately. Counsel, your argument holds no legal weight. We are dealing with a serious breach. Marcus turned to look at me. The fire I had seen in his eyes before was gone, now just an empty fatigue. He finally understood. He wasn't the one holding the script anymore. The judge concluded the hearing. The next session would be held in 45 days to complete asset verification and finalize division according to law. As I stepped out of the courtroom, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Chloe? I stopped, but I know I've lost everything, Marcus's voice trembled, but you don't have to make it this bad. I turned slowly to face him. Marcus, I'm not doing this out of spite. I'm doing it because you disrespected me for far too long. He looked around, as if searching for something to cling to, but aside from the patchy clouds over the nearly empty parking lot, all that remained was silence. I walked away, leaving him standing there, alone, in the hollow aftermath of his own choices. 4 months after the preliminary hearing, I stood in a third-floor room of a red brick building in downtown Raleigh. Once an old art gallery, now the very first office of Anderson Financial Renewal, a financial consulting firm exclusively for women navigating divorce and life transitions. The metal sign outside the glass door still bore the marks of where the installer's wrench had tightened it, but to me, it felt like a medal no one could ever take away. No one here saw me as Marcus's ex-wife. They called me Chloe, Emmy's Anderson, the woman who turned wreckage into a compass. My first client was Julie Rankin, 47, going through a divorce after 22 years in a controlling marriage. She arrived with tear-streaked eyes and chaotic financial records. We spent 3 sessions sorting every expense, every insurance detail, every bank statement her husband had deliberately hidden. At the final session, she hugged me through tears. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't even know where to start. I didn't cry. I was used to holding steady. But after she left, I looked at the nameplate on my desk and whispered a quiet thank you to myself. The next client came through Julie's referral, then another, then 5. Eventually, I had to hire a part-time assistant, a finance student named Lauren, who proved that precision and kindness could coexist. No longer was I sitting at a kitchen table balancing bills for a husband. Now I was helping women reclaim their financial power, something I had once surrendered temporarily to a man who could sell dreams, but never build anything to last. One July afternoon, Natalie stopped by my office after work. She'd started a job at a major ad agency in Charlotte, but was in town for the weekend. Still sharp, still quick-witted, but with a new maturity that came from having lived through the storm. I was walking by and saw your sign from the street. It looks amazing, she smiled. I poured her a glass of cold water and motioned for her to sit. I didn't tell you yet, but last week I signed a long-term consulting contract with a nonprofit for survivors of domestic violence. They'll be sending clients regularly. Natalie's jaw dropped. You're building a network, not just a company? That's the goal. I want women who've been written off to know they don't have to start from scratch. She walked over and hugged me from behind. I'm proud of you. I froze for a second. Throughout my marriage, I had heard Marcus say thank you, like it was an afterthought. But hearing I'm proud of you from Natalie made my spine straighten just a little more. She pulled out her phone, snapping a few photos of me in the office. I'm posting this on Instagram, a story of real-life rebirth. Add a hashtag for me. I think I need lessons in that. Relax. My generation lives for hashtags. When she left, I sat alone in the quiet of the office. Outside, traffic hummed beneath the fading afternoon sun. No one was waiting for me at home. No dinner to cook for someone who never valued the effort. No forced smiles at cocktail parties filled with his friends. Just me, my laptop, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing the house I went back to was mine, saved through clarity and self-respect. When I checked my mailbox before closing up, there was an unfamiliar envelope from a law office. I opened it. Official notice that Marcus had withdrawn his appeal regarding the assets. No message, no emotion. Just a signature and a court seal. He had finally let go, or simply no longer had the strength to hold on. I folded the letter and slid it into a drawer. There is no such thing as a perfect ending, but some chapters begin at exactly the right time. The final hearing took place on October 16th, exactly the date that would have marked my 29th wedding anniversary with Marcus. I hadn't mentioned it to anyone, not to Madeline, not to Natalie, not even to myself. But as I stepped into the courtroom wearing the deep navy dress once tailored for our 25th anniversary celebration, I knew this wasn't the end of a marriage, but the closure of an outdated version of myself I had once clung to at all costs. Marcus arrived 5 minutes late, his thinning hair more noticeable, his once customed suits now replaced by a worn, off-the-rack ensemble. The man who used to pride himself on being the rational mind in every deal looked like someone who had just walked out of a failed boardroom. He was accompanied by a new attorney, older but with an unmistakable air of quiet resignation. Judge Parnell began the session swiftly, no longer as patient or procedural as before. She had reviewed everything, the financial records, the evidence, and as she put it, one party has prepared their case with such precision that not a single legal gap remains. I knew she was referring to Madeline and me. Given the continued validity of the fidelity clause in the prenuptial agreement, and in light of Mr. Caldwell's willful financial misconduct, she announced, the court orders the following division of assets. Mrs. Anderson shall retain full ownership and long-term primary residence of the current home. Mrs. Anderson shall be awarded 70% of all retirement assets and shared investments. Any property under Mrs. Anderson's name prior to marriage shall remain entirely hers. Mr. Caldwell shall assume all debts incurred through private transactions and undisclosed dealing. Marcus sat motionless. As for the previously frozen accounts, the judge continued, the remainder shall be released to Mrs. Anderson for legal fees and reasonable living expenses. Madeline gave a subtle nod, not even a hint of a smile. That was her style. Calm, exacting, never showy. This case is now closed, Judge Parnell concluded. Court is adjourned. I rose, quietly gathered my case folder. Just as I was about to exit, Marcus stood and called out softly. Lowy. I turned. He walked over, his steps void of the pride that once defined them. I just wanted to say, I've lost more than I ever realized. I looked into the eyes of the man I had shared more than 2 decades with. You didn't lose it, Marcus. You threw it away. Is there any chance, he fumbled, not to go back, just for forgiveness? I paused, then replied slowly. Forgiveness doesn't always require an apology, but forgetting? That's not on my list. He nodded, eyes dropping. I hope you live well. I left the courthouse and took a long breath beneath Railmsry's crisp autumn sky. A gentle breeze stirred the red maple leaves, a kind of fall I used to hold dear in old memories, but now I didn't need to keep those anymore. That evening, Natalie took me to dinner at a newly opened bistro on the outskirts of town. She had reserved a window table, lit with candles, small white baby's breath in a mason jar, and, for dessert, my favorite chocolate mousse. A celebration of freedom, she said, raising her glass of red wine. I clinked mine with hers and smiled. Or maybe the day I finally became myself. She looked at me, eyes glowing. Dad was wrong, but I'm grateful, because it led you to something better. I nodded. I no longer need someone to build castles for me. I've learned how to draw the plans, buy the land, and lay every brick with my own hands. We sat there as the sky outside turned dark and the street lamps flickered on. I thought about all the women still trapped in marriages they're too scared to leave, scared, misinformed, or bound by numbers. And I knew my work had only just begun. But tonight, I allowed myself one quiet victory. Not because I'd defeated Marcus, but because I no longer needed him to believe I was worthy of something better. Chloe's story is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to reclaim your worth and build a new life from the ruins. Instead of breaking under betrayal, she chose to rise, using her skills and quiet strength to turn pain into opportunity. In real life, thousands of women stand at similar crossroads, and like Chloe, they deserve freedom, respect, and a future shaped on their own terms. Forgiveness is a choice, but it never means surrender. What do you think about Chloe's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt, powerful stories about life and family.